Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 70. I don't care about Sabrina's monologuing and her thoughts. I could have figured she felt this way. A lot of classic Sabrina stories also had long stories. I know that No Strings Attached had an unusual amount of pages, but I didn't mind it there because the stories were fun and interesting enough that I didn't notice how long they were going on for. She wonders why Harvey's acting cheerful, as if he never even wrote the letter. Sabrina's too cowardly to confront him on the fact that she's been crying the past week because of him, while he thinks she's gonna care about an alpaca farm he went to. Ugh, this comic is just miserable. Wasn't this franchise a comedy at some point? She was a regular in 2 different comics where laugh was in the title. Now the only joke I can remember from this is that it's got a manga art style. He does actually remember the letter, so it's not like Shinji wrote it. And when she passes a note telling Shinji what's wrong, she's offended and thinks he doesn't care because he only wrote, "I see." He finally tells Harvey, "I trusted you not to hurt her." Yeah, what's this drama doing in the comic anyways? It just makes it frustrating. He says that the only reason he backed off was because he thought Harvey would treat Sabrina right. He changes the subject by calling Shinji possessive. He somehow thinks Harvey didn't explain himself in his letter. Shinji doesn't understand why he found his relationship with Sabrina stressful. Harvey says he doesn't know how to act around Sabrina and is more comfortable being her friend, because that's his personality all of a sudden. "I see her still as much of a chicken as you always were." Amy overhears and says she wants to help. She offers to teach him how to write romantic love notes and surprise the girl with flowers and hold hands. So she holds his hand and gets people to think that they're dating, to get to Sabrina, because drama. Who cares about the story actually being charming, right? Let's just depress the audience for cheap ratings. You'd think he wouldn't know how to act around her either. She would have the same problem of him being distant and not wanting her to kiss him where someone might see. Shinji won't compete in the spelling bee in the other realm because the prizes are just old spell books. Wouldn't every spell be in the one magic book? Wouldn't it be easy for any witch to come up with a spell on their own? Like, literally the entire franchise has had up to this point. Not to mention any witch could just zap up anything they want. The only prize they'd have is money. Sabrina wants to enter anyways. Why? When would she use those spells? She's always holding back because she's in the mortal realm anyways, so she might as well not be a witch most of the time. So the plot's gonna force her to enter, and that's the plot now. At least the manga is mostly feeling episodic. It has continuity, but it still feels like a Sabrina comic in the one sense that every story has its own self-contained story. Harvey overhears and assumes she's gonna enter the mortal spelling bee, so Sabrina wants to do that to impress him. Sabrina asks Gwen to be her study buddy because she's a poet. I'm glad Gwen's being used as a character again, because it seems like the writer wasn't interested in her anymore, because she can't cause drama. Gwen's gonna enter too, and show Sabrina the spelling club that hates her, because drama. Why do they hang out together if they're all each other's competition, if they hate her for being competition? I didn't need any more drama. It's not like there's even constantly jokes to make up for all this. Her aunts here are boring studying. Can't it just cut to the spelling bee? Her aunts pity her, and I wonder if she'll win just because she's the main character. Either way, it's a waste of time. Why should I care if she wins spell books or not? Somehow there's no spell that can cure nausea or nervousness. Somehow. Even though brainwashing spells have been a thing since the 70s comic. Even though brainwashing spells have been a thing since her first ever story. And there's a brew that can cure the cold. And Landra heard nervousness and not nausea somehow. I'm not sure I even care about the competition at all. I just want to cut to the part where they decide the winner. It's not like they're gonna die if they don't cast the spell correctly. Go figure she makes it to the final round because she's the main character. It makes sense that she'd make it this far. I wish just cut to the final round right away. Maybe that's because it's not nearly interesting enough. Because it could have been interesting, because there's any spell that they could cast. Why should I care if they're just casting spells for competition instead of seeing how magic would improve a mortal life. Then, blah blah blah, she transformed Hansel's spell. How did the judge not know that was possible? As someone who read the entire comic, this will make sense later, but if someone didn't know that was possible, you'd think she would be investigated immediately. So she ruins the fireball. And why does he have a wand? Witches almost never have wands. Why is this series taking so much inspiration from Harry Potter? It's common sense that it wouldn't because it predated it. It's been around perfectly fine since the 60s, so it was clearly doing something right. So why did they have a magic school just because of Harry Potter? He complains that he can't use magic without the wand being dry. Huh? Sabrina never needed a wand. Why did she dry off his wand for him? I guess even in the 70s, Sabrina would be goody-goody enough to do that. I want to see more of her being goody-goody. Sabrina gets declared the winner because Hansel has an attitude. Even though he has every reason to suspect that Sabrina put a hex on the wand, because why would someone want to help her competition? It would have been realistic if Sabrina lost the competition. But I'm not going to complain about drama not happening. There's something about the story that just makes me bored and apathetic to it. All the spells are the ones I've seen before. How could the writer be that uncreative? At least try to be funny. I'm glad it was Hansel because he gets humiliated. Even if he had every excuse to not trust Sabrina to do well in acting. You know, it's pretty surprising to me actually that Hansel came back again. Considering how episodic the comic was being. They could have easily not brought him back. More boring dialogue, and then she's invited to a weekend trip on the floating island with her and a friend. Immediately thought of Angel Island. This writer did write for the Sonic comic a few times. So it's not a creative idea, but I do like it. I'm glad she chooses Landra. She's told to observe the trip closely so she'll always remember it. She's naturally creeped out. This mystery immediately got old. She could have explained why she was treating her that way immediately. Even if she could just make up an excuse for it, like she could say that she never had a daughter and she's probably never gonna have a daughter. So Sabrina is like a daughter to her. That's what someone with good social skills would do, instead of creeping Sabrina out by being so nice to her. It's frustrating because this friendship between her and the blue girl could have so easily been heartwarming, if only Sabrina appreciated it more. And she instantly fails the actual spelling bee from fear and dumbness. At least that is in character for Sabrina. Even all the way back in the 70s, she was terrible at spelling. But Harvey reassures her anyways, calling her brave. I wish Sabrina wasn't mad that Amy was dating Harvey. It would be out of character for her not to be mad, but it just makes it all the more annoying. She can have him because he sucked for Sabrina. But no, she still wants him because that's drama, and the shipping is just intrusive in this comic. She doesn't learn her lesson. So she just deludes herself into thinking that Harvey will be a good boyfriend for her the next time he'd get together with her. Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 71. Sabrina and Landra are studying for an important test, and for some reason Salem shows up saying they called just because Cat was spelled out. He must be really bored. Why are they being tested on how prepared they'll be for college when they're only sophomores? I don't remember having to do that. Why should I care about this? Sabrina decides that all of her friends should study together before the test. Landra asks Shinji why he has Sabrina-style lip gloss tied to his broom, which is a pretty stupid question. She knows he used to date her. She knew he used to have a crush on her. Of course this was chosen. Harvey says he works better by himself. And Shinji asks why he came here. Why was Harvey written to come here if the writer had him ask this? I don't care about any of this studying. This writer has no idea what makes a story boring. Hilda's nice enough to bring them food she zapped up. And Sabrina thinks the study group failed, so now she has to bring all of her study stuff on the trip. Who cares? Another problem with this comic is that Hilda has far too much focus compared to Zelda, who I think is the only main character I don't hate. It made sense that Hilda had all the focus in the 70s comic, but not in this comic where Hilda is basically the same person as Zelda. She realizes that there's stuff written in the spell books she won, and she wants Landra to help figure it out. They finally go through a portal together, and after 45 minutes, no one showed up to them. Sabrina sees a map of the place on the end papers of the spell book with the resort. Why did she even consider walking there instead of flying? Idiots. They find a resort, which is in ruins, and Sabrina's furious, calling the queen sadistic for sending her here. Why didn't the queen warn her that it was going to be in ruins? Landra worries that they might be heard, and Sabrina wanted to be pampered. Landra tries to reassure her that it'll be like an adventure for them. Well, I guess the queen is extremely busy with administrative duties. So that's why she couldn't go on the adventure with Sabrina if she likes spending time with her so much. She says they should find a campsite and zap up lunch. She says she's lucky she brought someone from the jungle here. And the story keeps being boring. I know it's aimed at teenage girls, but that doesn't mean I want a comic that's mostly talking with no jokes. Why would Landra say that Harvey broke up with her because she was hiding a part of herself from him? How would he ever get that idea? How would she get that idea? So that's another forced argument between the two. Didn't she even hear what the letter had to say? So Landra mentions Gwen knowing about magic, when earlier on she was scared that they were being eavesdropped on. So if this gets Gwen in trouble, I won't be happy because I had no excuse for having this argument. Landra suddenly has a complete 180 and decides that it wouldn't be the end of the world for Sabrina to tell Harvey she's a witch, even though she was against Gwen finding out in the first place. She really does literally only exist to disagree with her on everything. How is she not doing this on purpose? And somehow, Sabrina disagrees, but doesn't proceed to remind her that they already had an entire story dedicated to showing how Harvey would just want to take advantage of her if he knew she was a witch. Not to mention an entire scene where Landra was against her telling mortals that she's a witch. She definitely point that out. Why would she sympathize with Harvey so much when she doesn't have a crush on him like Sabrina does? Why would Landra even need to be told this? This is why this comic is stupid. Even if the art was good, it can't go one issue without forced drama. There's no charm. She's mad at being asked how things are going between her and Shinji, and asks Sabrina if she has her eyes on Shinji again. To be fair, Sabrina was never happy about her getting along with Shinji and dating him. So if Landra was actually able to notice that, then it would make sense for her to be mad and get jealous. Sabrina tells her to relax, and fortunately Landra apologizes and says they're both tired and irritable from all of this walking that they had no excuse to do because they can fly on brooms. They can fly on literally anything actually. The writer could have at least had it be explained that they want to do some walking because it's good exercise. Sabrina tries to do a math question studying. And then the tree talks to them, giving them the answer. Out of all of the trees they sat in front of the amazing arithmetic tree. Sure, it's convenient that the tree found out how to do arithmetic in its completely stationary life. If it being a math tree is supposed to be special, then it's not surrounded by anybody else that could teach it about math. I guess it doesn't have to be right next to anyone who teaches it about math. It can just find out about other trees who know about math through its roots, like through the root system that goes throughout the entire planet. And how did those trees find out about math? Sabrina wastes time after this trying to study some more. Sabrina uses lip gloss, and this gives Landra an excuse to blow up at her, and ask her if she's hiding something from her. Why? They could have very easily not been interested in the same guy. There's a reason I never expected that to happen. Then they get scared by a monster with a loud growling stomach who only wants to eat their sandwich. He thanks them and offers to bring them to the secret mana tree as a thanks. At least the supernatural stuff is interesting. But what do you mean, secret mana tree? I mean, how would there be any secrets that witches wouldn't know? I mean, especially since Landra's worried that they might be eavesdropped on. Landra wishes they could have gotten a closer look at the tree. You are omnipotent, Landra. And the rock in the wall tells them that they need to say the magic words. Wait, why? Can't they just go intangible and walk through any obstacles? Fly through any obstacles? Sabrina uses spellbooks and finds the magic word. She sees the tree and says that all of the realm's magic is supplied by this tree. There's only one mana tree, and I'm supposed to believe it's a secret? Then then how did they know about it already in an earlier story? I mean, wouldn't someone have inevitably blabbed about it and gotten it to be known by everybody? You'd think witches would have the internet. Landra lampshades Sabrina being meant to see this. It feels like it's just main character syndrome. I mean, why would she ask Sabrina to do this, and not, what about the guy who reported to her about the leaves on the mana tree turning brown? Landra reminds the audience that the tree is dropping dead leaves. Again, there's no reason to respect this plot point, because it's immediately obvious that witches have the power to fix this, because there's thousands of different spells they could cast. So they should have just cast a spell to make the mana tree immortal, unable to suffer any problem, unchangeable. When witches are omnipotent, the very idea that this is happening is complete nonsense. Can't they just de-age the tree to a point where that wasn't happening to it? I've read the entire comic, so that would start happening to it again, but still they could buy it a lot of time by just constantly reversing its age. Landra says that if word got out about this, there'd be widespread panic, and the Queen Protector of the tree would be in danger. Landra says she could figure something out because she has tons of books on magical plants. So eventually they go to a portal back home, and Sabrina asks who opened it. Isn't it obvious that the Queen did? Who else would it be? The Queen has no social skills. She had no reason not to just instantly warp them to the mana tree instead of putting them through all this bickering. So this story was about Sabrina entering 2 different spelling bees, one of them the magical kind. You'd think I would be a lot more interested in the magical spelling bee, but something about it just completely bored me. So I was still apathetic to most of the story. All of the spells were spells she cast before. Spells could have been creative and entertaining. Why should I be interested in her using magic for a competition? It's meaningless. I don't have a reason to care about her winning spell books. All the spells should be in the magic book that every witch has anyways. So this story was about Sabrina and Landra going to a trip to a floating island because of the Queen. And for some reason they go on a long walk bickering with each other when the Queen wanted them to see the mana tree. So there's no reason at all that she went to just warp them to the mana tree.